Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom brought to you by K-12 Sports Tech, along with all of our other great sponsors. We'll be right back with this week's Wednesday Wisdom guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, you've heard me say many times, these are all companies that I used as an athletic director. I think you should be using them too. So listen to our shout outs, listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to thank Gipper for their support of the podcast. Your students are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. It's used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college programs. And the Gipper team is going to have you creating world-class content in seconds. Maybe it's a social media post. Maybe it's a complete newsletter that's telling your constituents all the great things your program is accomplishing. Either way, go to Gipper.com, mention the podcast, go to Gipper.com. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And whether it's setting up online tickets, modifying your season passes, even creating custom seat maps and point of sale, Hometown is going to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing for you. We want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results. Their athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is worth the price. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to thank Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. Now, my assistant athletic director, along with thousands of others, got his master's at Ohio University, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And he also completed 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at the same time at no extra cost. Go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. We'd like to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables, and video boards. You heard me say many times that our Sideline Interactive indoor score table is a game changer, and it is, but check out their video boards, both indoor and outdoor. It's a great display for your student athletes, for your fans, and for your sponsors. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule a live web demo today. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an AD, I made sure we were a Huddle school. Our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos. Our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We'd like to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We'd like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or to show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to showcase your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At my school, we use surveys for everything: kids, coaches, parents, you name it. And the information that came back was almost always over the top positive. But it also allowed us to hear from those squeaky wheel parents, usually address their concerns and keep them from turning into a big problem. Athletic Surveys is going to do the same thing for you. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's vital signs. That's athleticsurveys.com. And we want to thank K-12 Sports Tech, the name sponsor for Wednesday Wisdom. K-12 Sports Tech helps athletic directors and vendors connect through education and hands-on consulting services. Athletic directors are also invited to join the K-12 Sports Tech AD think tank and help influence how companies shape their tech to better serve schools. To get started or to join the think tank, just go to k12sportstech.com. That's k12sportstech.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom brought to you by K-12 Sports Tech on the Educational AD Podcast. We've got one of our favorite presenters, somebody I consider a good friend. She hasn't been on for a while, so shame on me, but let's welcome back Cara Cocchiarella to Wednesday Wisdom. Regular listeners will certainly recognize that name. Cara has a tremendous background in athletics. She was a college athlete. She was a high school coach. She was a high school athletic director. She's currently professor and the department chair for health and PE at Clark College. That's in Vancouver, Washington. She's also the director and founder of her own organization called Win Win. Hopefully, she's going to share some of that. She's an author. Her book is Winning Well. You can find that on Amazon. And she is also, take a breath here, the education chair for the U.S. Center for Coaching Excellence. So we are very happy to welcome back Cara Cocchiarella.
Oh, thank you, Jake. I appreciate it. Excited to be on here with you. It's always fun to chat, to catch up with you, and to be able to talk ADs and coaching and how we can best support coaches.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll go ahead and throw this out. Cara and I, last spring, we were both presenters at the Oregon Athletic Directors Association state conference. Had a great time. After being internet friends, we finally got to meet in person. So it was very cool. Cara, you've done this many times before, so let's get to it. What do you have for our listeners this week on Wednesday Wisdom?
Well, as you and I were chatting when we first hopped on this call, Jake, I've been talking to a lot of athletic directors who are in the process of currently evaluating or assessing or hosting their postseason meetings with their coaches from last season. And when I think about that process, that this is an area where I feel really passionate and I get very excited about the potential that we have as leaders to help guide coaches to consistently improve and to strive for improvement across their career, whether they're brand new coaches or have been doing it for many, many years and have all sorts of accolades behind their name. And so when I think about coach evaluations, I really think about how we can, as leaders, engage coaches authentically in the process so that they can continue to learn. So the process can be really centered around them. It's kind of like in the classroom, making our teaching student-centered, or when we're working with our athletes, making our coaching athlete-centered. Well, making sure that we also, as leaders, when we're working with coaches, making the processes as we're speaking about their coaching and how they can improve and things they might want to do differently or better, how can we make that more coach-centered? So just a quick kind of rundown of some of the things that I've worked with other coaches on in my consulting work, or worked with organizations to implement systems that are more supportive of coach learning. And there's a little bit of groundwork that we need to lay. So kind of the initial pieces in terms of groundwork are determining as an organization or for you and your listeners, much of this is determined by the school or the values of the school and the community. What are the pillars that you are looking for in terms of what do you want out of your coaches? And we'll get into this piece of the difference between athlete or team performance and coach performance, but this might be things like communication, effective communication with athletes, building connections with parents, maybe some things around safety, We think about like organization of our programs and teams, um, building positive connections with athletes, lots of different things that we might expect of our coaches, and just identifying what are those pillars, what are those things that we absolutely want to make sure our coaches are implementing or working on. And making sure that coaches know that those are the things that we're looking for. Those would also be the things that we should be evaluating in them. So we don't need our evaluations, postseason evaluations, to be a surprise to the coach. Like, oh, here are all these things that we looked at in your work. If we want them to be good at those things, we should be presenting those up front. So those should be really clear. So starting with the pillars that we would like to see within our coaches. Sorry about that. And then it's also has within us as leaders or athletic directors, we need to make sure that we have shifted our mindset to a place where we are actually committed to coach growth and that we are willing to engage in this process in a way that's more authentic for coaches, more meaningful, and more coach centered. So we have to kind of in a sense, give up a little of that control that we tend to have as athletic directors and sometimes tend to need. But giving up a little of that control so that we can allow coaches to bring their insight, their needs, their goals to the table. And so here's a process that I recommend loosely, and we can kind of dive into the specifics. And these are things, again, that I've worked with some different coaching staffs and different leaders and different organizations. Starting with once we're committed as leaders and we've identified those pillars, we want to make sure that our coaches understand the pillars, and we need them to understand the difference between team and athlete performance as opposed to coach performance. So starting from the beginning of this conversation, letting them know that, yes, we want your athletes, your teams to be really successful. We want them to enjoy it. We want them to learn all sorts of things. And we also want you as a professional to be the best that you can. And we want you to continue to work on things to grow and improve in your craft of coaching, which is, in a sense, like it overlaps with what happens with the athletes and the teams. It has something to do with the technical and the technical, but it has a lot to do with that like art of coaching and how effective we are in working with others. So making sure they know the difference between those two things. And then creating a process where we start the season by checking in with coaches. We'll do some check-ins, and then we have a follow-up or a post-season evaluation. But in all of those processes, asking coaches, okay, what is it that you hoped from your athletes and your team? What did you hope, or let's say we start from the beginning of the season. What do you hope to see from them? What do you hope that they accomplish, and what kind of growth do you want to see? And then making sure that in that conversation, we also ask them, okay, and for you as a coach, what is it that you want to work on? What are the things you would like to see yourself do better this season? And then how can I support you? Right? So allowing them the space to tell you the stuff that they want to work on. Now, knowing that this is all based as well, that we have that foundation of these are the things that I need to see as an athletic director. Our school expects this, or our district expects these things. But then also really getting into the nitty-gritty of that with them. Maybe they will choose one of the main pillars that you have within your school or your district, and maybe not. Maybe there's something different. But what's cool about this is that when we put that in their hands, they can authentically be in the process with us. And now we know, yeah, we have these boxes we need to check. But what is it that you really, truly care about? And when we check in with them mid-season, then we can say, how's it going? Like, oh, I noticed these things. You can be the one who goes to the list of the school expectations and kind of runs through that checklist with them. And then always making sure that we're checking back in like, hey, how are you doing with your goal of blank? How can I support? Is there something else I can do to support you in improving in that way or in executing those skills or whatever it is that it is they choose? What's fun about this is that when we get to a point where we're in these evaluation conversations that so many athletic directors I've talked to are in the heart of right now, Uh, you can ask coaches just straight from the beginning after you have gone through your checklist, because I know you have mandatory things. Keep coming back to that. Add in this piece if you don't have it already. What was your goal for this season? And make sure, have them tell you what they wanted from their team and their athletes and what they wanted to see out of themselves as a coach. Because if we just say, what was your goal? Well, many of them are going to say things like, oh, I wanted to make the playoffs, or we really thought we should win a state championship this year. Okay, great. Allow that to be part of the conversation, because that is important. And what were you as a coach working on? What were the things that and allowing them to recite back to you what their goals were from the beginning and that you checked in with, and then ask them, what went well? What didn't go so well? And in those conversations, especially when we know our coaches, we know some coaches are going to be incredibly hard on themselves, and we're going to have to prompt them over and over to tell us something positive that they did, to tell us some of the positive growth that they've seen. And then we have other coaches who we may have to prompt them to tell us the things that they could do differently, or the things that they could have done better. But encouraging coaches to share, again, team and athlete performance and coach performance, and making those two things really distinctly clear, the difference between them, and having them share with us the positives that they saw, and the negatives, or the areas for improvement. And then if they've covered what we maybe would have told them, we don't need to hit it. We don't need to reiterate it. What's really nice about letting coaches kind of guide this process a little bit and guide these conversations is that when it comes from them internally, if we think about it in our own work, if our boss tells us to do something, that's one thing. Okay, I can manage that. But when we recognize it in ourselves and we say, oh, I could do this better, that's where we have that intrinsic motivation. Those are the lessons that are really powerful. So we're really, as athletic directors or leaders in sport, really just fostering that process, helping coaches to go through that process of self-improvement, and letting them know we are on board with them, and that our prerogative is to help them to be the best coach that they can be, and that we're okay with them doing it maybe a little bit differently than we would, and that we value them as individuals, and that we see them. So it takes some real commitment, but it also can be really, really fun. And this is where I think, athletic directors have a cool job and a cool opportunity. And I recognize you're slammed for time. You've got all sorts of things on your plate. And I also know, and we all know this, coaches are often not as well supported as we would like. And so this just gives them one more opportunity to really be a part of the process of their own growth. And these conversations can be really, really fun. Just requires a little groundwork, some commitment by you, and willingness to let go a little, and then having those conversations and guiding them to understand their coaching is something that you want to talk about, not just their team's performance. So that's what I got, Jake. What do you think?
Well, I guess number one, thank you for sharing all of that. Your process is eerily, I don't know if that's the right word, close to what I used at my final stop as an AD, at the end of my career, where I'd kind of, trial and error, made some mistakes in this area. It's such a key area. I guess maybe a couple of quick observations. Tell me what you think. As an AD, you take a job at a school, and those first couple of years, you're learning and you're growing while you're also trying to mentor and lead people. You're going to have some coaches that are there. They've been there for a while. They're doing great, and they're going to be Hall of Fame coaches. You also have some coaches that are, closer to the start of their journey, and they're not Hall of Fame coaches yet, but that's part of your job, is to help them become better so that they might end up in the Hall of Fame. Not everybody's going to end up in the Hall of Fame, but you're going to have a wide range of coaching abilities. And as an AD, you've got to help each one become the best one they can be. Your themes of Okay, foundational pillars. Okay, this is how we roll. That stuff hopefully is being presented in the interview when you first meet this person, and then acted upon and acted out every day in practice, every game in the hallways, in the classrooms, et cetera. That is kind of your culture as an AD. And if a coach, veteran or newcomer, is straying away from that, it's your job as an AD to help them come back in and stay on the rails. That might be, hey, I noticed this the other day. What were you thinking, Coach? In a positive way. I saw you. You were really angry at Billy during that timeout. What was that all about? And just kind of talking it out. And maybe it's a growth moment for you because you didn't see the whole thing, or maybe it's an opportunity for you to help that coach become better. That's what I would try to do. Walk through practices, just kind of see what's going on, see things at games, and then praise. Wow, great job last night. You handled that pressure game, or you handled that big loss, or in some cases that big win. Just fantastic. Really appreciate it. Letting them know, hey, I'm on the right track. Also letting them know when they're starting to stray. And so when you do have to have that difficult conversation, it's not the first conversation. Uh, you've already built up whatever you want to call some change in your pocket, some credibility. You're coming down as a colleague. Yeah, you're the boss, but it's not. They've never heard from you before, and all of a sudden, you're just lowering the boom on them. Um, if there's a third time, I would always let that coach know, hey, I really want to help you. I noticed this the other day. We talked about this, back in whatever, October. You really need to work on this. How can I help you do better? And I would end with, if we have to talk about this again, we're going to be having a different conversation. I would tell our coaches at the end of the year, when it's your exit interview, already if you're coming back or not. Okay. And if you don't, that's bad on me. Because of those conversations that we've had. And your point about what are some things that you thought you did really well? That was what I would tell them prior to our exit, end of the season, not exit, end of the season chat. I want to know some of the things that you're proud of. And I also want to know one or two things that you want to work on for next year. And even that coach that's just coming off a state championship. Hey, we don't want to be one and done. We want to win another one, or we want to see our kids have more opportunities, whatever it is. Okay. Even that Hall of Fame coach, they need some coaching too. So I kind of backed up my dump truck, but great presentation. I love everything that you shared. What do you think about my comments from the cheap seats?
Those aren't cheap seats there, Jake. I no, I really appreciate it. I think, as you were talking about that, one thing that really resonated with me is just how powerful it is to ask questions. And we can learn so much from the questions that we ask. And really, as leaders, engaging in those conversations to learn, like listen to learn. Because like you said, often there's more to the story than we understand or than we know. Um, and maybe not always, but often that is the case. And when we ask those questions and we have that deeper understanding, we position ourselves to do better work as well, because then we're able to support coaches in what they are actually experiencing, which is not always what we think we're seeing. So yeah, I think, just the power of asking those questions and then really engaging and continuing being in consistent communication with our coaches. So, even if it's just a check-in here or there, because I know a lot of ADs out there are managing all sorts of programs, all sorts of coaches. You have probably way too many to work with at one time. But just finding a time, finding a way to check in a few times throughout the season, making sure that as the athletic director, that we aren't just like the boss who comes in and says from the beginning of the season, this is what you need to do. And then at the end of the season, this is how you did it. We can be a lot more engaging with coaches by really just shifting our efforts and the way that we do things, not necessarily adding a bunch to our plates. Um, but just shifting it so that it's more of a conversation, and it values who they are as individuals and individual coaches, and it values them as adult learners. We don't love for people to just come in and tell us what to do and how we did it and all these things, and can be hard to just sit and listen. So being able to be part of the process can make it a lot more meaningful for them and can make us as leaders a lot more efficient and effective, um, because we're there, we're in it with them. We're truly in it with them. I think the other thing too that stands out, sorry, last thing here, Jake,
Oh, no.
as you were talking, I'm thinking about coaches who, when I engage in these conversations, often they will come up with something, even if I've been their supervisor, right? As an athletic director or any other position, they will come up with plans for themselves and feedback and ideas that are much more elaborate and much more intense than I may have even provided to them. But they are actually committed to it because it came from them. So, in giving up a little bit of control, at least of the conversation and the direction that it goes, often coaches come up with an improvement plan that is well beyond what I may have come up with for them myself. And I think, that's just, if we don't give it a chance, we don't give it that chance, we don't know. So, yeah.
No, no, I agree 100%. And, just going back to what you said about, the importance of asking questions and also after you ask that question to listen to them. You probably heard me share this before, but I'll just be real short. The best thing I ever did as an AD, 26 years as an AD, 41 years as a coach and a teacher. The best thing I ever did as an athletic director when I got hired at my school in Tallahassee, where I ended up finishing my career, that summer before school started, I invited every coach to come in. Hey, I'm Jake Von Scher. I'm the new AD. Please come in. Just like to meet you. Almost every single coach did, about 80 plus coaches. And this is what I did after, they sat down and agreed with them. I asked them this question: what can I do to make your job more fun? What can I do to kind of take things off your plate so you can enjoy the fun part of coaching? And I talking about Hall of Fame coaches, I had three on my staff. Um, each one of those three and some others over the next couple of months, they would come up to me and say, nobody's ever asked us that before. And it was just a big moment for me, for them to have somebody ask them that question. And it was a huge moment for me to get that type of feedback. But again, how can I help you? Okay. Yeah. Oh, athletic directors, you're overloaded. We know that. I'm saying it's the job, but let your coaches know that you're there for them, and you'll be amazed, like Cara said, at the things that they come up with and maybe some solutions that they provide you to make your job better.
Oh,
Great,
yeah.
great topic. Okay.
Well, and the fun part, like, gives me goosebumps, Jake. We don't talk about it enough. We really not at all. So to be able to remind them this is ultimately what we're here for. And we want them to have fun too. And if our coaches are having fun or are feeling supported, they're more likely to stick around. So in all the ways, just so much benefit can come from having these processes that are truly collaborative and supportive. So
Mhm.
yeah, but we
Absolutely.
could talk about this for days, Jake.
Yes, we can. Um, for listeners, if you haven't picked up already, Cara Cocchiarella, she is a consultant. She works with athletic directors, coaches, schools, programs. She's a speaker on a national level. Her organization, her own program, it's called Win Win. She's going to give out that contact information. Also, go to Amazon, check out her book, Winning Well. And Cara, if one of our listeners wants to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more, or just add you to their network, what's the best way they can get a hold of you? What's the website?
Yeah, I would love that. Love to talk to any of your listeners. ADs are actually one of my favorite groups to support. I've been in your shoes, and I really respect and appreciate all the work that you do. So happy to help whenever I can. Win-win-consulting.com is the best way to contact me. So win-win-consulting.com.
Okay. And Cara's also on LinkedIn. Takes the time, reach out, find out what she can do for you and your program. Cara, thanks again for spending some time with us. Always great to hang out with you. We're definitely going to have to get you back on this spring for an update. And when I get out to the great Northwest next summer, we are definitely going to connect and have that beverage or two.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. For listeners, we want to thank you and also remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. We do this segment every week, and just about every day we try to share stories from the world of athletics along with some best practices. So come back and join us for the next episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. Before we go, we do want to say thanks to all of our great sponsors. Remember, K-12 Sports Tech is the named sponsor for all of our Wednesday Wisdom segments. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. We'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing and Sideline Interactive. We want to thank Snap Rays along with Home Campus. We want to thank Gipper, Ohio University's Online Masters in Athletic Administration, and we want to say thanks to Huddle. As always, we appreciate you listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.